Hello everyone, my name is Brayden, this is Airless Quill 9, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at the Gibbering Mouther, a Ravenous chorus of Unreality. So, Gibbering Mouthers endlessly feed on and regrow their own amoeboid bodies, amorphous heaps roiled with eyes, teeth, and strange organs. These mind-bending terrors sing and scream, laugh and cry with a cacophony of voices ranging from disturbingly unnatural to shockingly familiar. They exist only to feed and to unleash their disdain for reality, their many maws dripping with otherworldly spittle. Gibbering Mouthers come into being in various unpleasant ways. Roll on or choose a result from the Gibbering Mouther nascences table, to inspire what brought one of these horrors into being. This is a D6 table that we can roll on, and it gives us some ideas on where Gibbering Mouther might have come from. These options are that the Gibbering Mouther is another creature warped by dangerous magic, the autonomous appendage of a chaotic deity, far realm entity, or star spawn horror, the experiment of an aberrant manipulator, part of the life cycle of some other aberration, a shapeshifter that lost control of its powers, or someone cursed by a cult or vengeful deity. And so we're going to take a look at the 2024 Gibbering Mouther, talk about its stat block, compare it to its 2014 iteration, and then I will give my thoughts on how this new version has been designed and if it is better or worth making some changes to. So let's go ahead and get straight to it. All right, so the Gibbering Mouther is a medium aberration of chaotic neutral alignment. They have an armor class of 9, an initiative of -1. They have 52 hit points, a speed of 20 feet, and a swim speed of 20 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 10, a dexterity of 8, a constitution of 16, an intelligence of 3, a wisdom of 10, and a charisma of 6. They are immune to the prone condition. For their abilities, or senses rather, they have dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 10. No languages, but the Gibbering Mouther is a challenge rating 2 creature, which means it has 450 experience points, and it has a proficiency bonus of +2. Now let's get on to the traits. The first trait that we're going to talk about is Aberrant Ground. This states that the ground in a 10-foot emanation originating from the Mouther is difficult terrain. The second trait we're going to talk about is Gibbering. The Mouther babbles incoherently while it doesn't have the incapacitated condition. Wisdom saving throw, DC 10. Any creature that starts its turn within 20 feet of the Mouther while it is babbling. On a failure, the target rolls 1d8 to determine what it does during the current turn. On a 1 to 4, the target does nothing. On a 5 to 6, the target takes no action or bonus action and uses all its movement to move in a random direction. On a 7 to 8, the target makes a melee attack against a randomly determined creature within its reach, or does nothing if it can't make such an attack. Finally, we get to the actions. First, we see that the Gibbering Mouther has a bite. This is a melee attack roll with a +2 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. On a hit, it deals 2d6 piercing damage. If the target is a medium or smaller creature, it has the prone condition, and the target dies if it is reduced to 0 hit points by this attack. Its body is then absorbed into the Mouther, leaving only equipment behind. And the second action we have is called Blinding Spittle. This is on a recharge of 5 to 6. This is a dexterity saving throw, DC 10, each creature in a 10-foot radius sphere centered on a point within 30 feet. On a failure, a target takes 2d6 radiant damage, and the target has the blinded condition until the end of the Mouther's next turn. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk real quick about what changes have been made from 2014. All right, so right off the bat, there is a hit point change to the Gibbering Mouther. In 2014, the Gibbering Mouther had 67 hit points, just because it had 9 hit dice. However, in 2024, the Gibbering Mouther has lost 2 hit dice, so now its current HP is 52. This is alright, in my opinion, because the Gibbering Mouther did have a lot of hit points for a challenge rating 2 creature, and I feel that that is why this in particular was nerfed. There is a buff, however, in the speed. In 2014, the Gibbering Mouther had a 10-foot movement speed and a 10-foot swim speed. So these have both been doubled, which is quite nice to see because it will ensure that Gibbering Mouther is able to move a little bit faster across the battlefield in order to get into range of its targets. Now, Aberrant Ground has also seen an interesting change. The main functionality of it, at least with the difficult terrain, that is still present in here. However, there is a line that has been removed, and that's because in 2014, the Aberrant Ground trait stated that each creature that started its turn in the area must succeed on a DC 10 strength saving throw or have its speed reduced to 0 until the start of its next turn. I kind of understand why they removed this. The ground in a 10-foot radius that is a 10-foot emanation around the Mouther was already considered difficult terrain. So it's really a lot simpler on the Dungeon Master to just remove that additional line. That way, that is not something that the Dungeon Master needs to worry about in the middle of combat. They already need to remind themselves that the ground is difficult terrain and a 10-foot emanation around the Mouther. So adding on something to that would just be a little bit too much. So I understand why they removed that. However, we do have some small changes to gibbering as well. And the main change here that I have noticed is in the failure categories. So, in 2014, one of the detriments that all creatures got when they failed the save was that they couldn't take reactions until the start of their next turn. This is no longer present in the gibbering trait at all. So that is kind of a nerf in that respect. Other than that, gibbering works pretty much the exact same. So there's really no other change to it other than that small change. I feel like that's kind of a significant change. However, I don't know if that really affects what the gibbering is going to do, because the gibbering by itself is already pretty detrimental if a target fails it. So I don't mind that it was nerfed slightly because it is still pretty bad, and other than that, there's no other changes to it. Now let's talk about the actions. There are some major changes in this category, and I feel like this really affects how the Gibbering Mouther functions in 2024. So first off, let's go ahead and talk about the bite. So the bite has been significantly nerfed. It used to deal 5d6 piercing damage, and it is now dealing only 2d6. That is a massive damage nerf. It's been cut in half, more than in half. However, there are some interesting changes to the bite attack in itself. First off, there's no saving throw attached to the target now being prone. They just need to meet the size restriction in order to become prone. The second really interesting change is that beforehand, the bite attack in 2014 stated that the target, or if the target was killed by damage from the bite attack, that it became absorbed by the Mouther. Now it states that if the target is reduced to 0 hit points by the bite attack, it dies, and its body is then absorbed into the Mouther. However, it leaves the equipment behind that the creature was wearing. So there's some pretty interesting changes here. However, I'm really disappointed by the damage nerf here. I don't necessarily think the bite attack needs a damage boost to put it back in tune with how much it was dealing before. What I do think the Gibbering Mouther needs is a multi-attack that allows it to make 2 bite attacks. And the reason I'm saying this is because, first off, the Gibbering Mouther only has a +2 to hit with this bite attack. And the second reason is because now it is only dealing 2d6 damage with the bite. With a multi-attack, it is still not dealing 5d6 piercing damage on a hit. However, it is dealing closer to what it dealt before, and I think that puts it more in range with the challenge rating that it is supposed to be. Granted, this is a pretty devastating bite attack because not only does it prone, but if the target is reduced to 0 hit points, it will then immediately die and become absorbed into the Mouther. So there's some pretty bad detriments to this bite attack. However, I feel like the damage nerf was too much for the Gibbering Mouther, and I would seriously add a multi-attack in, allowing it to make 2 bite attacks. And there's another reason I suggest this particular change, and that is because Blinding Spittle has also been changed. It is still a recharge 5 to 6, still a DC 10 dexterity. Sorry, it is still a dexterity saving throw. However, it used to be a DC 13, so that has been reduced. However, it used to only be, it used to target a point, and it used to affect each creature within 5 feet of that point. So this has actually been improved. The range also used to only be 15 feet. It is now 30 feet. And since it is now a 10-foot radius sphere, this is affecting a greater area now. Now, the really major change for Blinding Spittle is that it now deals 2d6 radiant damage. So, we need to consider when area effect things are present in a stat block that they affect at least 2 creatures. So on average, Blinding Spittle should be dealing, considering that each of those 2 creatures fail their saving throw, 14 radiant damage, and then they both become blinded until the end of the Mouther's next turn. So Blinding Spittle, major improvement. Pretty great improvement there. However, Blinding Spittle now deals very decent damage. And it is a lot more damage productive than the bite attack. So, if we added a multi-attack into the Gibbering Mouther stat block, not only would the bite attack be on par with Blinding Spittle, but now there's not a huge damage nerf for us using Blinding Spittle for our action instead of using our multi-attack to make 2 bite attacks. So I would add a multi-attack in here, allow the Gibbering Mouther to make 2 bite attacks. Other than that, no other changes necessary. I feel like the Gibbering Mouther is in a good place. However, I really think it needs a multi-attack, and that is just so that it is keeping on par with the challenge rating. I feel like Wizards dropped the ball here, and I feel like maybe there was supposed to be a multi-attack in here, but it got passed over and they didn't notice that they forgot to put it in here. But yeah, other than that, I feel like Gibbering Mouther is in a good place, but I would definitely give it a multi-attack, allowing it to make 2 bite attacks. That is going to be it for this particular video. thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I greatly appreciate all support that you give me, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. So I will catch you all later.